Sisters. We're talking with Omali Yeshitela, if you're just tuning in and watching. Women.
Yes.
How do we see our sisters? Oftentimes in the criticism, if we were to carve out new movements today, looking back at the past, they will point and say there was a lot of marginalization, a lot of misogyny, a lot of second-classing women in our movements. Even now, as we have conversations, there are people going, "Where are the women?" You know, how does this play out? What's our responsibility as men? And is there a traditional role we're playing, or are we creating new seats and new paradigms that we haven't seen in a while?
Well, I think the main thing that has to happen is that real revolutionary organizations, real social transformation requires freedom for everybody, without any limitation, without any attempt to impose what freedom should look like in that context, if it's for the whole. You understand? Right. Freedom for everybody. And this notion, backwards notion, that imposed on Africa from some external forces that somehow women are lesser creatures that have to walk in the back and know their places and this stuff is bogus and backwards. And that what has to happen, and if you look at the history of our organization, you will see that throughout our history, not only have we had women leadership, but from some of our history, the majority of our leaders have been women. And this is not just in we're talking about real power that has existed, and exists in our party right now. So that's one thing. But I want to go beyond that, because not only are we talking about women and this notion about placing limitations, I think women have to join the revolution to guarantee what the future is going to look like, so it's not left up to me and you and other people, but they're going to be able to say, this is how the future is going to be looked, because they're locked and loaded. You understand? Just like everybody else is locked and loaded.
One might say the fact that they bear kids and life and all that, and a lot of times in our communities are the backbones, are the ones that are shouldering a lot of the burden, and not because it's women's work, but just the practicality of us being at war and so many brothers being carted off to jail. By default, a lot of our sisters become a part of that. One would argue that they're already a part of the revolution, and that we need to, as men, make sure that they are, that their wisdom is included in the conversation, that their ideas and perspectives are taken into account as we form, knowing that if we're in a constant state of war, which you pointed out, the casualty is that many of us are locked up and our mothers and sisters and aunties are holding down the fort.
Well, that's true, but I think what I would say is that that is absolutely true. I think we have to build movements like that, but I'm saying also that women should not have to rely on my willingness or your willingness to open the door. I'm saying that women must join this revolution, and then when coming into the revolution must demand that the revolution opens up itself so that the children and all of these are factors in their participation. Right. And that men learn how to cook, and men learn how to wash clothes and iron and do all the other kinds of things that's necessary. And the women have to be involved in this discussion about what development is going to look like in technology, what it's going to do, because some of the things that proscribed certain kinds of participation by women in society in the past are no longer necessary. I mean, it may have been necessary based on physical strength, what women could do in terms of labor and stuff like that, but technology today, you know, that's not necessary. Right. You know, and I don't want people who, even when they're talking about how, you know, women, you know, have to do these things based on we're at war. I mean, there's some ways that you can fancy up and gussy up and dress up and romanticize this stuff that women are trapped in. I mean, you go to Africa where you see women, you know, walking for miles and miles and miles with tons, like beasts of burden, with the heads, you know, full of wood, firewood, walking miles, you know, to get wood, to cook food, walking miles to get water, not clean water, to use for food and stuff like that. This is terrible, like, you know, women are like beasts of burden, and that stuff, we have to have revolutionary movement. That's my commitment, but women should not have to depend on my commitment. They should join in this movement to say we're going to make sure. And when I talk about women, I'm not talking about feminism, which is the bourgeois concept that where you have, you know, some biological predetermination about, you know, what the future is going to look like in that fashion. What I'm talking about is women, the most desperate, fiendish imposition on the rights and freedom of women, African women, is imperialism. the same thing that imposes itself on the rights and freedom of African people as a whole, the same thing that's already predetermined, that women, that children, before they are born, are going to be locked up in prisons and stuffed into, horrible circumstances that's determined that the men in their lives subject to be in these prison systems and stuff like that. I mean, so imperialism is the fiend, is the enemy that the whole African Revolution has to direct itself, and women in the process of fighting the struggle against imperialism must join the rest of us and help to lead us in dealing with all of the contradictions that impose itself on women that we may be playing some role in facilitating.